Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, Vincent LaRusso and I are going to be discussing the upcoming final shows of Kiss's End of the Road tour at Madison Square Garden December 1st and 2nd. Of course, there's lots of thoughts and lots of emotions to share leading up to these incredible shows. I also know a bunch of you guys and girls are going to be at these shows as well, so if you see me, absolutely feel free to stop, let's take a picture together, and let's celebrate the incredible legacy of this band. So much to cover in this episode, so much to discuss. Why don't we jump in and let's get started? Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today I'm excited to have with me my very merry buddy, very merry for the holiday season here. Merry just in general.
Want to be starting something. You got to be starting something.
I'm not sure what that has to do with anything, but okay.
Well, we're going to be starting something. We're going to be starting something.
There you go. Okay. I was like, we're not going to see Michael Jackson. What are you singing? This is...
No.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Well, it could be possible, right? Maybe they could do like.
Don't they have those? What are they called? What's that called? A hologram? What is that thing called?
Yeah, the hologram tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you? So
I'm doing well.
How
you
totally.
Doing?
I'm doing totally good. So we're going to talk about Kiss. In the
Are you doing totally good or totally
We'll
good?
talk about Thode in a moment. but before I lose my train of thought here, right? So you started singing Michael Jackson. I thought of Dio. Hologram tour. Right? We're going to talk about the Kiss final shows here. That's what we're here to discuss. Would any type of hologram tour interest you, Kiss or otherwise? If the Beatles had a hologram tour, would you go see that? He started saying no, and then I said Beatles, and then I saw like the little smile, like maybe.
I think I'd be just interested to see at least one act just to see what that's like.
I changed your answer there in a matter of 2 words. The Beatles.
Yeah, you pretty much did. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. There was a very short-lived Broadway. I think it was Broadway. I don't know if it was off Broadway or on Broadway. I think it was called Let It Be. It was just about, gotta be 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. And it was, to me, the closest thing to seeing the Beatles. It was all live. They played live. They went from the beginning of the Beatles, of She Loves You, yeah, and the different progressions with the outfits, the Sgt. Pepper, and the band sounded great. The vocalist sounded, and I was like, this is like the closest thing to actually seeing a Beatles concert with no original members,
Right.
It was awesome. I was thoroughly thrilled watching this performance.
And hold on, so let's talk thoroughly Thode for a moment, right? So I sent you a screenshot I guess about a week ago at this point, right? And we always say Thode on the show here, and this goes back to us being 12, 13, 14-year-old dopes.
Yeah.
It goes back to the 80s, like you said. And we've said it before.
Thode. I don't know about dopes.
Well, pretty much dopes. Because who says Thode?
Yeah.
Nobody says Thode.
Yeah.
But us.
Nobody.
and although maybe we polluted some of the people out there that watch and listen, I would be very happy if somebody came up to me like at the Garden in one of the final shows. Hey, Mike, how Thode are you for these shows? That would make my night, actually.
Yeah. Mine too, just to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. But we've said Thode means being excited, and just recently, there's always comments on YouTube. I get private messages about it. And I want to give a shout out. Mr. Larry Anderson messaged me a couple of weeks ago. Mike, where's this word "thode" come from? I understand what it means, but where does it come from? And of course, I took the time to explain it because you and I get a kick out of it, and I sent you the screenshot, and we both get a laugh out of it. But
Yeah.
why don't you just explain for those who maybe are watching or viewing for the first time, and or maybe they're shutting
Yeah.
it off. They're like, "What the hell are these two dopes talking about thode? What do we mean
Yeah.
when we say thode?"
I mean, it was something that we used to say that if we got excited about something, like our feet would get excited, starting from our feet, that your toe like would like extend through your shoe. You'd be so excited, right? I know it kind of doesn't make any
It makes no sense at
because in
all.
a way, however,
And the more
um,
excited you are, the more
you
toes
know,
that got extended.
exactly. But yeah, that's kind of what it was. So Toad, I don't know, somehow it changed to Thode. I got all Thode. We used to say I'm all Thode.
Yes,
And if you were really excited, you were thoroughly Thode.
thoroughly
Again,
thode.
this is our own language. It's
Yes,
stuff, from when we
you're
were a
not going to
kid.
find this in
And
Webster's.
or no, no. But that's where it comes from,
Yep,
you know?
yep. Circa
Yeah.
1984.
Yeah. About that time.
Yep, yep. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I just thought that was good, and I always appreciate when I see comments like that or I get messages like that. It always, I'll say, brightens my day, and I always send them all to you. I screenshot them,
Mm,
I send them to you instantly. I'm like, this is making me thoroughly thode when I see these comments.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we've got the final two Kiss shows coming up, and what would you say your Tho level is on those? Right? Are you excited? Is it a
Mm,
depressing feeling? Is you like that little segue from talking about being thawed?
yeah.
What's your toe
I,
level?
honestly, I don't think I'm excited about it. I think that's the wrong. I think it's the realization that this is the end. This is the realization of, I mean, what, 40, how many years?
Yeah, 40, 45
45,
years.
something like,
Yeah, for us,
yeah,
not for the
of
band. We're talking for
fandom.
us.
Yeah, right. Of fandom, you know, so much time invested in listening to the band, going to concerts, learning the songs, just so much. And it's bittersweet in a lot of ways. I'm happy to be a part of their last show and to be in the building. We always said hopefully we would have that opportunity.
Yep.
We weren't even sure, depending on where it was going to be, if we would have that opportunity. I know they are doing a pay-per-view, which I'm sure that's something you want to get to.
Yep.
But I really don't know like how it's going to feel that night.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing. I what I thought of the most is that moment where at the end of rock and roll night and they say good night for the last time, like what that's going to feel like, knowing that these are your idols that you've looked up to for so long. And like I said, it's such a huge part of our DNA. It's almost like unimaginable, the
Yep.
feeling. And I
Yep.
think it's just going to be something that on the spot, we're just going to feel it. So I think, yeah, I'm happy to be a part of it. I don't know if I'm excited because I know that this is it,
Yeah.
you
You
know?
know, I've said for a good year or two now that I'm ready, right? I've even said it on the show here. I'm ready. I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready for the final shows. I think that, Kiss has given me everything I need, and I think it's time. And
Mm-hmm.
then mid-September, I went to see the band Kix perform their final show. And they did everything the right way. They brought out all their previous members that recorded on albums. They did a couple songs they hadn't done in a while. So they did it the totally right way. Obviously, different level than Kiss. I understand that. But they really, really did the final show the right way. And then right after that show, some of the band members started selling off their stage played instruments, their outfits that they'd wear on stage. And it just like really drove home the finality of Kix no longer playing. And I
Mm-hmm.
started to think about, well, 2 months from now, that's Kiss. Now they might not sell off their stage, outfits. They've been selling their guitars and all of that already. But I started to think like, wow, really, that's it. And now they've had these final 25 shows that are starting. And I see, people who are going to them and getting thoroughly thawed to go to those shows. And I'm like, this is it. come December 3rd, there probably won't be any other, there's not going to be another Kiss tour. And we'll talk about what we think about, is this really the final show? But now the reality is like, am I ready? I've been saying for a few years I'm ready, but having that Kicks experience, seeing what happened afterwards, and this is only in the last like 6 weeks that this has happened, and now kind of translating that into Kiss, who's meant for me and for you so much more. Even though I love Kicks, they're probably one of my 5 favorite live bands. It's just like, it's made me question, am I really ready? I don't know that I'm ready. I've said I'm ready, but I don't know that I'm ready. And I've said this a number of times. December 2nd will be my last show. And you've always said, nah, I won't know. If they do something, you'll be there. And now I'm questioning myself. Even though I say I'm ready and I think it's the right time, if they did something a year from now, would I go? Am I really ready? And that's the question I keep asking myself. Am I really ready for this to be the end? And I'm no longer sure that I am. It's like, and you said it perfectly. There's no I'm excited to see a whole bunch of people from around the world that I know at these shows. And to me, that's really exciting that there's going to be a bunch of people from all over the place coming in. I'm excited about that. But like you said, when Rock and Roll All Night ends December 2nd, about 10:59 p.m., what am I going to feel like? I don't think there's going to be excitement. I don't think I'm going to be like, all right, thank you. That was good. They gave me everything I needed. What's next for tomorrow? I think there's going to be a sadness. I really think there's going to be. And I didn't think there would be a couple months ago for me. I really didn't.
No, I always thought that in the back of my mind, that it was going to be sad. And, and you more than me, you've gone to so many shows, you've seen them so many times, and invested a lot more of your time than I have in the concert arena.
Yeah.
But my takeaway, and I've always say this, is that no matter what, we've said this when people have passed, the music will always still exist. And as long as, I'm able to breathe air and, step foot on this earth, I'm going to be listening to this band. I'm going to be loving this band, and nothing or nobody is ever going to be able to take any of that away from me. And I think what will wind up happening is that perhaps when I know that they're no longer, doing concerts, for myself, it's a bit different, playing in Kiss Unmasked, a cover band, not a tribute band to Kiss, is I get to perform these songs every other month or whatever, and always have that Kiss DNA in me.
Yep.
And that to me is something that's very special. Having the records, watching, stuff on YouTube or whatever. I think my point being is that I may actually dive more into the Kiss catalog.
Well, I was going to ask you, will you actually maybe listen to Monster now? As you're talking, I'm like, that's what I'm thinking. You might need some new Kiss material. You'll go and say, let me listen to Monster again.
There are some exceptions to every rule.
Oh, man. Good damn.
Well, but maybe I will. Who knows? Maybe this will be something else to like. I mean, I have, as we've done before, I have given it a, second, third chance, but
yes.
I think I'll always feel that way about that record. But
yes,
that's neither here nor there of what we're trying to talk about here. It is Kiss related. But yeah, I think that's what's going to wind up happening. It's like all of a sudden it's just going to be like, wow, I think what I'd be interested in is what are Gene and Paul mainly going to be doing. We know that Paul has the interest in his Soul Station, which is something I'm more aligned with than you are, just because of the nature of the music. So I'll be curious to see if he does more stuff with that. Gene is always going to be doing something. And I wonder if they're going to be doing more so probably Gene than Paul, I would think, where Gene was doing, his solo band, of Kiss material. Like, is he going to continue to do that? I don't see Paul doing that at all.
I don't see Paul doing that. I do have a feeling Gene will do that. It'll be interesting to see, because some of those guys now play with Ace, and will Gene like swipe him back from Ace, and will
some of them isn't only one at this point.
I think it's two. I think it's Jeremy and Ryan are still playing with him.
Oh, I thought Ryan was with someone else.
No, I think Ryan's still with Ace, but it'll be interesting to see, like, does Gene swipe those guys back and Ace is left without a band from this?
I don't know, with Gene Simmons, he could have anybody. I mean, I think it was cool as a little bit of a segue, and not that they haven't played together, but I know that Sammy Hagar announced this new tour,
Yes.
Best of All Worlds,
Best
is he
of all
calling it?
worlds. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and he's got Satriani playing guitar because
Yep.
as Eddie, as Sammy has said, like, who else better to play Eddie than Joe Satriani? Now they played with Chicken Foot together,
Right.
so it's
It's
not like they
chicken
had to
foot
have.
less with the new drama.
Yeah, exactly. But still a great choice,
Yep.
obviously, or as we would say,
Agreed.
cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, great cheers.
Mhm.
Um, so my point being is that Gene Simmons could pretty much have anybody he wants.
Yes.
What kind of would be cool is like Gene Simmons gets there's so many known celebrity musicians who love Kiss. Imagine he put a band like of isn't John Five like a huge Kiss
Yeah.
fan, right?
Hmm.
Like imagine like you had John Five playing
Yep.
guitar and I don't know who would be singing Paul Stanley or whatever,
Yep.
like kind of like you know, you just
Right.
had this like all-star band of that would be kind of cool, you know?
That would be. I mean, John Five's probably never leaving Motley Crue to do a Gene Simmons tour, but your point is still spot on, and that to
Yeah.
me that would be very very interesting. The thing is, Kiss members as solo artists have never really drawn much at all.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Paul Stanley here in the city on his Live to Win tour, and it was in a club, a decent
Mm-hmm.
sized club. There's probably
Mm-hmm.
1,500 people there, but Gene's never going to be selling out, arenas or even big amphitheaters. I don't think as a solo artist. So it'll be interesting to see. And I think you're spot on. I do think he's going to do some kind of solo tour. And look, I loved those shows. You and I drove to Cleveland for his first public solo show, and I was thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly thrilled for those
Mm-hmm.
shows. Every night I saw him, I think 6 or 7 times on that tour. Every single
Mm-hmm.
show was a different set list. Every single show had different deep cuts at it that you'd never seen him perform or sing before. Um, Sign me up. That's exciting. That's probably even more exciting than going to a Kiss show at this point. With no disrespect to the band that I've loved for 45 years, but I do think Gene will do that. I don't know if he'll do it right away. Like if Kiss ends December
Mm-hmm.
2nd, I don't see him announcing on December 3rd, hey, January, I'm going out on a solo tour. I'd be
Mm-hmm.
surprised, but maybe by next summer, who knows?
Well, again, one thing we're not talking about yet is that how are they going to process this?
Yeah,
How are they going to be emotionally? Is Gene Simmons going to require going out and doing something in order for him to get past that this is over, the
right.
Kiss thing? Or is it going to be like, I need time to like kind of power down and like, this is an emotional toll it takes on you and I'm, just projecting here. I don't
Yeah,
know.
of course. No,
So,
Now, Gene's not the
you know,
type of guy to sit around and do nothing, like you said before. So,
exactly.
in fact, I'm joking that he's not going to announce a solo tour on December 3rd, but that weekend into the beginning of the week, I think he's doing some events at Electric Lady with fans, and you can
Mm,
record songs with him. So, no sooner than he gets off the stage than he's doing an event with fans. Literally, I think within 48 hours. So, he's not going to sit back and do nothing. I think Paul will take it easy a little bit. I wonder if Eric will try to latch on with another band. Obviously, Eric through the years, whether it's Alice Cooper, whether it was Black Sabbath, Lita Ford, Badlands, right? He's been involved in many different things. I wonder if he'll try to latch on somewhere else, or if he's in his 60s now and he's like, I made that Kiss money, I'm good.
my guess on that is like, maybe more so Eric than Tommy, just because of, like you said, Eric has like that pedigree of playing with, not that Tommy can't, but
No,
he's has that experience and they're still, young enough to, I think they're going to want to play. I mean, it's in your DNA. What else are these guys going to do? And this the other thing too. You could say, well, Gene is like, he's a mogul. He's going to sell soda. I mean, at the end of the day, selling soda or selling this, there's no real connection of what you have with the fans, as you
agreed.
know.
Yeah.
So I think he's always going to require more than that, whether it's doing these special events like he's doing Electric Ladyland or putting the band together or whatever else. I could see, I don't even know if these shows, I know they still exist. America's Got Talent. Like Gene would be
Mm-hmm.
like a great judge on that.
Yes.
He's got
Agreed.
he's got the perfect personality for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He obviously, has an eye for talent.
And
And
he's got name recognition enough,
and
I
he's got
think
name
that.
recognition. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe it's something like that.
Right.
Um, But
I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Eric doesn't necessarily latch on with another band, but maybe does studio recordings, plays drums for this person on their album or something like that. Again, pure speculation. I haven't heard Eric say anything one way or another, but I'd be surprised if he latched on and tried to tour with another entity, unless Alice Cooper comes knocking that he needs a drummer again. I think Eric probably would feel a certain allegiance to him, to Alice, but otherwise, I'd be surprised if Eric was all of a sudden a member of fill in the blank, whatever band is looking for a drummer and he's out there touring. But I won't be surprised if he's, hey, I need a drummer. I don't know. Orianthi, right? That's somebody's solo artist I interviewed earlier this year, and I'm doing a solo album. I need a drummer. Hey, Eric, would you want to play drums? I would see him doing something. I just randomly picked a name out of the air, but it could be anybody. I wouldn't be surprised if Eric does things like that. I think Tommy's going to work for Kiss behind the scenes, and I'm hoping with this that there'll be CD releases and video releases. Although the rumor is that Kiss is looking to sell the rights, not just to their music, they sold that years ago, but rights to their likeness and their logo. And that's one of the reasons why there's been no more off the soundboards and no more box sets right now, is supposedly there's negotiations for the entity of Kiss to be sold, which would then say Tommy doesn't have a job probably to be that guy.
He could always go back to the docks. So that's the good thing.
That's true. Yes, he could. And see Gina while he's there, right? Oh, God damn. Well, let me ask you this, because I've heard the different members, and Gene specifically, he's been doing a lot of interviews recently. At one point, they said the End of the Road tour was going to be their final tour. Then they started saying it was their final Kiss show ever. Now, more recently, Gene said, oh, it's definitely the final makeup show. What do you think as we look forward? I do think, personally, I guess I'm going to go first here. I do think it'll be their final makeup show, certainly their final tour. Then I don't see them ever doing a world tour again. But do you think we'll see Paul, Gene, Eric, and Tommy on stage again in some capacity, even if it's without makeup?
That's a tough one. I think to say no would be unrealistic. And just in the sense that something could come up that brings them together, some show, some awards thing, or but to come and play without the makeup, it depends on at what age the makeup's just going to look purely silly on them. Now, because as you age, your face changes or whatever, or your body or whatever. I mean, I know, what is Tommy, like 64 around that age, I think.
Around
Eric,
around there.
late 60s, I think. And Gene and Paul are obviously both in their 70s. I don't know. Like, why don't I visualize them playing again without makeup? That just seems.
So you would say right now, you think it's more likely if they ever do something, even a one-off, that they do it with makeup than without?
Because I think that's just how they're identified at this point. They've played so many more years now with makeup on than makeup off, right? Yeah. I mean, by far. So what appeal, what draw, unless they all showed up at a club one night and they all, for some band that was playing, but even that seems unrealistic now. Yeah, you don't really see that happen anymore. I don't know. This could really be it.
Yeah.
It really could be.
I think if they ever announce another cruise, and I think it's smart that they're not really saying there's going to be another cruise right now, because you don't want there to be a final show and then, oh, but by the way, we're doing this cruise in 9 months, right? So just because there's no announcement now doesn't mean there won't be one in the future. But I can envision there being another cruise and the four of them getting on stage doing 5 songs or 6 songs, no makeup. That type of crowd, that crowd would not care if there's makeup there or not. But if an award show, or if, like I think of how Twisted Sister reunited, I think it was last year, because they were getting into some Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, but I forget what it was. The Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, I think it was actually the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. If Kiss got some kind of recognition like that and were asked to perform or 1 song or 2 songs with makeup, I could see something like that again happening. But I would be stunned at this point if in 2024, 2025, they said, hey, we're going to go out and do 10 cities or 12 cities, and forget even just a tour. Hey, we're going to do a show at the Garden again, or we're going to do the Forum in Los Angeles, or whatever it is. And they're in makeup full show 2 hours. I would be surprised at this point if they do that.
I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I think, too, let's also be realistic. I think at this point, to sing the material, and then when you don't, that could go either way. If you don't sing for a while, you give a voice a break. Although, I think just realistically on that sense too, I think Paul realizes that these songs become tougher and tougher for him to sing.
Yep.
Again, you want to go out strong or strong as possible. This is, again, not trying to beat a dead horse. This is not the Paul Stanley of the mid 90s or even the early 2000s. So, why go out there? And you hear a lot of bands, bands of our era, and you hear the vocalists that just can't.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see the bands like that. I don't want to hear the bands like that. Me personally,
Yeah.
So
which is why I've said for a few years I'm ready, because I'm accepting a much lesser Paul Stanley right now, because for me it is the final run. I don't want this Paul Stanley for 15, 20 years or 10 years even, or even another 5 years. And that's Paul's been my guy for decades, right? He, to me, is the, in my opinion, the best front man. And I know that people could say Freddie Mercury or others, I'm not saying that there's not other answers to that question, but for me, in my lifetime, in my fandom, Paul Stanley's been the guy, the best front man, one of the best vocalists of my generation. I hate to see him not be an A+++. And I hate to see other people have things that they can say about him and they be right. So that's one of the reasons why I'm ready, because Paul's given me 4 or 5 decades of incredible memories. I don't need anything else.
Well,
but then I think about that night and I'm like,
Well, unfortunately, in the world we live in, for every one video that you show Paul Stanley's prime, there's 20 videos of him fucking up or him,
of course,
lip syncing or whatever, and that's just the nature of what
that's the way
fuels people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But yeah, I think that night walking out of the Garden on December 2nd, I'm going to be like, holy crap, that really might be it. And again, I go back to having that experience with Kix 6 weeks ago. So it kind of almost like warmed me up a little bit to it. And then I thought I was going to have that experience with Aerosmith in mid-January. I had tickets to go see them at the Garden for what was supposed to be their Peace Out tour, their final tour. And as we know, Aerosmith has had to postpone their tour. Right. And oddly enough, their last show right now was about 20 miles from here in Brooklyn. And I went back and forth about going to that show. And I was leaving for Amsterdam the next day on a business trip. And I said, nah, you know what? I'm going to see Aerosmith in January at the Garden. I'm good. I don't need to go to the Brooklyn show. And I bring this up because the people who were at that show that night didn't know that the tour was going to be paused the next day. Hell, the band didn't know that, And I don't want to jinx this because we're still, a little bit away from the final show here, but I am going to be thankful that Kiss makes it to December 2nd, and it doesn't just happen where the rug gets pulled. And now, look, hopefully Aerosmith gets back on the road, but that's always been in the back of my mind, especially last year when Gene had that show where he's sitting on the chair for one of his songs or whatever, and he just says, was really starting to get the heat starting to get to him. These guys are not young. I mean, it's amazing on stage how much energy they have for guys in their 70s. But I've always worried that we wouldn't make it to this final show, that something would happen and they wouldn't be able to keep performing. So I'm thankful that, knock on wood, that they make it to this final show. And I get that closure that I think I need. I don't know how else to say it. I think
that's right. Yeah, I think we both need that, and I think a lot of Kiss fans are going to feel the same way.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. The fact that, they're still healthy and alive to be able to do this. And we're very fortunate, right? And to be able to have it in our hometown too. I mean, think about that.
Exactly.
There's so many different places in the world that have fans, Kiss fans, and it's in our home, in our state. So
literally my discussions this week with my wife has been, what time do I plan on getting to the city that day? Do I want to, how early do I want to get to the city? Do I want to drive? Do I want to take the train? Right. These are the problems that I have to decide on in the next week. I'm not, gee, I got to buy a flight and it's going to cost me $1,000 round trip. So yes, I'm very fortunate that I can say, gee, do I want to catch the 12 o'clock train or the 2 o'clock train? Do I want to drive and pay for parking? These are, so we're very fortunate about that. Very fortunate. Let me ask you this. Obviously, there's been so much talk over the years since the end of the road tour started about special guests and all of that. And at this point, I would be beyond stunned if Ace or Peter makes an appearance. Do you think there's any hope at all?
No.
He's shaking his head no for those who are listening.
Yeah.
Does that bother you that Ace and Peter will not be there?
Of course it does. Of course it does. I've said this before. It would be a wonderful thing that, the moment that they leave the stage for the last time, that the original lineup is together.
Yep.
I mean, even if they came up without the instruments and sang Rock and Roll Night while the confetti's coming down.
Yep.
But, let's face facts. Ace and Peter are not going to come on the stage with makeup on. That's number one. That would have probably never happened, Yep. It would have been kind of weird or odd. Not that I would have been opposed to it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I honestly would not care if there was 17 spacemen on stage.
Right. But
who cares that night?
But probably more so Paul would never go for that, And I don't know. I just feel like, this we've heard for how many months now. We asked them, and then you read the articles that say that Peter and Ace have declined, and is this a setup?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It hasn't been, let's face facts, for how many years now has it not been a healthy relationship with Peter and the Kiss Camp and Ace and the Kiss Camp? It's been like this for, 20 years? Something like that?
Easily, maybe more.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
So it's unfortunate. That's one part of this that makes me a bit sad.
Yep.
There's nothing you can do about that. You gotta just look at everything else that's really positive about the show.
Yep. Yep. I hate to keep going back to that Final Kicks show I was at, but like I said before, they did it so right. They started their show. The original guitarist, who hasn't been with them for 3-4 years, was up on stage doing songs from the first album they haven't performed in a while. Then he left the stage and the current guitarist came on. Then he left the stage and the guitarist from their second album came on. Then the last song they did, everybody came up on stage. The only person that wasn't there that night was the original bass player. To me, it would be nice to see Kiss do something like that. Hey, it doesn't even have to be end the show. Start the show with Ace, Peter, Paul, and Gene. Start by doing Deuce just like they did in the clubs in the 70s. But here's my thing. I think Gene wants all 4 of them to be on the stage together. I think the other 3, I don't want to say don't care, but maybe they don't care. I don't think Paul cares at all if Ace and Peter are there, which is sad. And I think there's so much, back history, like you said, that I think Ace and Peter feel such bitterness. And this is not about who's right and wrong, but I think Ace and Peter feel such bitterness that if they're there, they would be there almost like begrudgingly. And honestly, when I think about that, I don't say I don't want Ace and Peter there, because if the 2 of them came out, I'd freaking jump out of my seat and you'd have to freaking protect me from like jumping on the stage like a crazy man. But knowing that they kind of, I think, don't want it makes me not want it. I think I said it on the show once before. I want the 4 of them to be together because they want to be, not because they're doing it for the fans. I want them to want to be in the room together. They don't even have to perform. Right. Like, I think you've said it before, if like the show started and there was like a half-hour documentary and we saw the 4 of them together talking about the old days, but filmed this week, that would be freaking cool. I would love that, just to see the 4 of them together, but they don't want to be. I think Gene does, like I said, but I think the other guys, they don't really want to be together. So I kind of don't want to see it, because I don't want to have that tainted view as I'm watching it saying, well, those guys really don't want to be together right now. That's not as exciting to me.
Well, look, I think having it as a pay-per-view lessens the chances. And this is
Of
why I
course,
think
yes,
that, a Kiss show or like any major show now is a major production. Everything is timed.
yes.
There's literally, click tracks to tell them when the songs will start because they're doing lighting, they're doing bombs, they're doing all this stuff. Now, can you say for one night, just shut all that stuff off and we're just going to wing it?
And not going to do that with a pay-per-view, right?
It's way too, because, you're putting that out in the universe live, yes. People paying for that. That's why I think like, it's just they're not going to disconnect that cord. And if they were, then you would have heard secretly that they were rehearsing with these guys to private portion of the show. It is somewhat a shame because they had a lot of time to potentially plan something to make this a really special night of. There's so many different ways they could have gone about doing this. They could have brought maybe some of their, people who we know idolize the band, who are known onto the stage at once. Who knows? They could have done different things, but I just don't think any of that's going to happen. It's going to be your standard Kiss show. I think it's going to be your standard set list. I don't think all of a sudden they're going to start doing like rare tracks. They're going to start like
they're not going to break out the oath all of a sudden on the final show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not happening. Now, do you think? So we're talking about Ace and Peter for obvious reasons. Do you think Bruce shows up at this show and performs with them? Really?
I think it's just going to be purely the four of them.
That to me will be disappointing if that happens. To me, look, Ace and Peter are obviously original members, and without them, there is no Kiss. Bruce played an important part for a decade, and he remains on good terms with them.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that's almost a little bit, in my opinion here, of a slap in the face if they don't let Bruce get up on. I would love to see, it doesn't even have to be during the encores. Somewhere during the show, they do like a 2 or 3 song sequence of, it could be Tears Are Falling, Heaven's on Fire, look it up, right? Those 3 songs, the classics from the 80s, and have Bruce up on stage with them. Bruce could probably do that in his sleep without any rehearsal. You were talking about having to be rehearsed. Right? Bruce is so proficient that I think that afternoon he could just say, "Oh, what are we doing? Or where's the breakdown?" Blah blah blah. And he'd be totally fine. That to me would be disappointing if Bruce doesn't get some type of acknowledgement at the final show. But I have a feeling you might be right that he won't. But that'll be a little disappointing to me.
Has there been any show on this end of the road tour that a non-Kiss member has come up and played with them?
No.
Sang with them?
No.
Yeah, I just
taking out the cruises, right? Bruce is done.
Well, that's yeah.
But I'm taking that out. I'm to the standard shows.
Yeah,
the answer is
I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want it to be. It's the four of them. They look at this. Gene and Paul look at this as Kiss.
Right.
Kiss is not Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley anymore. They're a big part of their history and the original members, but right now,
Chris and Ace Frehley. Yep.
Right, yeah. Did I say something wrong?
You said Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for correcting me. I'm like, this is Kiss, and it's been Kiss for a long time.
Over 20 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, not that I don't want that. I'm not saying I don't want that. It'd be great if Bruce came out there and especially comes out with doing this little,
yes. The Bruce dance.
Yeah. But I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Now you mentioned before about not doing different songs, and I agree. Anybody who's going to this and expects them to do The Oath and Mr. Speed and Love 'Em Leave 'Em, and those things that's not happening at this show. Do you think though that there's a chance that they could do, because there's no opening act announced that I'm aware of, so that tells me something's going to go on beforehand, whether it's a little documentary film, whether it's a little bit of a longer set list, whether it's just me with a friggin' pipe dream. Maybe they just didn't want any attention away from them that night. I don't know. Do you think there's a chance that they, like during this tour, they've done songs like Tears Are Falling, Parasite. Early in the tour, they were doing Hide Your Heart. They've Crazy Nights came in and out a few times. Do you think there's a chance that they maybe bring some of the songs that they've done on this tour, 100,000 Years, they're not doing complete anymore, which is a friggin' travesty. Do you think there's a chance that they maybe bring a couple of those back and do a slightly longer set list with songs that they've done throughout this tour even? Right. So I'm not saying, hey, they haven't played Ladies Room in 25 years. Do you think they can do that? I'm saying songs they've done on this tour, maybe just instead of a 20 song set list, they do a 23 or 24 song set list.
I think that's a stronger possibility of everything you've mentioned thus far. I think that is possible.
I don't think it's going to happen, but again, this is
Yeah,
part of my
I don't.
wishful thinking.
My gut doesn't think that's going to happen either. But excuse me. But yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. Probably for me, I think back to when Eric Singer first joined the band and Ace was still in the band at this time. And it was right around the year 2000, they were in Japan. And in the encores every night, they'd goof around and do like a medley of songs. And it was kind of an unrehearsed thing, although they knew they were going to do this at that point every night. And they would do like 45 seconds of She, and then they would stop and they'd do maybe 30 or 40 seconds of Strutter, and just songs like that. And every night they would do some variation of various songs. I think if they did something like that during the encore, even just like kind of off the cuff, that would be fun to me. It doesn't even have to be fully rehearsed. It could just be like, hey, this is our last show. Hey, remember when we used to play Nothing to Lose? And they do that for 40 seconds and stop. It doesn't have to be fully rehearsed. I hope they do something to make it a fun, memorable night.
Well, what could happen, because it's a pay-per-view, in the sense of having like an opening documentary or whatever you want to call a little history of the band, I see that more realistic, because how are they going to start that pay-per-view? And if they show it on the pay-per-view, hopefully it's the same thing that you're going to see in the arena.
Sure.
Now here's the thing though. Remember, that would have to start after the show starts, because the curtain has to come down in order for that back screen to be shown if they're going to show anything. So then they're not going to drop the curtain, right? I mean, just think of it literally. You wanted the best, you got the best. The thing comes down, right? They're not going to do.
So I know that the pay-per-view starts at 8:00. Kiss usually starts at 8:40, 8:45. The pay-per-view starts at 8. So to your point, there's got to be something. They're not going to, you would think they're not going to make you stare at a blank screen for 45 minutes until Kiss hits the stage. Could they show a documentary, even in the Garden, with the curtain down? Although I don't know, do you want to be showing the stage? I mean, they have the screens on the side of the stage. You could be showing the documentary over there in the Garden. And it's a half-hour documentary, and then the curtain drops and the show starts at 8:30. I don't know.
Well, I think it would be, again, in timing for when they show it on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But it's it's just interesting to see to your point, they're definitely going to do something, I would think, on the pay-per-view, right?
How could they not?
And then you could say, well, how could they not? Is the last show, have you start off with some sort of history or them talking or whatever, showing them backstage getting ready for this last thing, and and who knows if there's going to be emotions and stuff going on. It'd be nice to kind of see what's going on as they're entering the arena, not the arena, the stage, and that whole thing. Again, there's so many good ideas here. It's just.
But I'll say this, when I saw them New Year's Eve, 96, 97, they did do a documentary before they hit the stage that night. And it was about 20 minutes long, if I remember right. And after about 8 or 10 minutes, people were like, okay, enough. When's this concert start? And so it's different watching it at home on a pay-per-view, let's just say, as opposed to being in the arena. The lights go down. You think the show started, and then it's like, well, just kidding. We're going to show you this film for the next half hour. It's a balance there. It'll be interesting to see what they do. So the pay-per-view, because I've seen some people comment about this online, that, gee, I'm traveling from wherever, and had I known I wouldn't have traveled, I would have just done the pay-per-view, or now this cheapens my experience being there because other people are watching it at home. What are your thoughts on that?
It's so unrealistic. What made you think that they were going to do a pay-per-view? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the fact of the matter is you're in the building.
Yeah.
You're not
to me, there's an enormous difference between being in the building and being at home.
Yeah, staring at a Samsung logo, an LG logo, a Sony logo, whatever the heck kind of TV you have. I mean, it doesn't cheapen it for me. And if you would have told me at the time, and I think I even said this at the time, well, if I don't get a ticket, I'm sure they're going to have some sort of pay-per-view, or, the very next day, somebody's going to have, and I'll just be able to, that's worst case scenario.
Yep.
So I think that's just unrealistic to think that they weren't going to, this is their final show. They weren't going to make history with this and not have it to be seen by whoever can pay for it. How much is the pay-per-view?
$30 or $40, I think, here in the States. I think it varies by where you are in the world. I think it was $30 or $40 here in the States. And from
Yeah.
what I read, I think, and I haven't really even looked into it at all, but I thought I saw somebody post online that the stream will be good until January 1st. So you'll have a month to watch it. So look, you hate to say this, there's going to be somebody that captures that and saves it for all time.
Mm.
And I'm assuming the band would have released something, but maybe not. Maybe just the pay-per-view is all they're going to release for this.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that there's going to be an official pro document of this final show.
Mm-hmm.
That's a definite. It does not change for me, not one iota, that they're broadcasting it. It doesn't make me feel like, gee, I'm getting a lesser product being there. Like you said, there's no comparison sitting on your couch watching it or being in the arena watching it. And I don't care if the pay-per-view was free. Had I known that when tickets went on sale, I still would have been buying tickets for the final show.
Yeah. I
it wouldn't have
agree.
changed anything for me. So, to me, it's like, I'm happy for the people who can't go, because there's lots of people around the world that wanted to be there and just can't afford it because, like you said, we're very fortunate. This is in our backyard. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the case for many people around the world who have to spend thousands of dollars to come to this. So I'm happy for the people who couldn't afford to, or just frankly didn't want to spend that kind of money, that they get a chance to be there live in that moment. I think that's really cool. I love that they're doing this.
I agree.
So we're going to do another one of these episodes right after the final show. And hopefully it's nothing but merriment. Hopefully they deliver what we're hoping they could on the final show. I'm saying this right now, I'll probably be a little disappointed if we go there and it's the same 20-song set list, the same shtick in between every song. And then at the end of the song, it's like, thank you, it's been a wonderful career. And they walk off the stage, I'd be a little bit like, what the hell just happened?
Thank you, it's been a wonderful career. Yeah.
I hope that they play into it, and that it's what I hope it is, But we'll see. We'll come back and we'll do another one of these after that final show.
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
Yes. On that editor's note, anything else you wanted to say as we lead up to this final show?
No, I think I've said what needed to be said at this point
in
time.
Oh, wait, that's Ozzy. Maybe you don't know that song.
Yeah.
It's a B-side from the Mr. Crowley EP.
Oh,
it's one of my favorite Ozzy songs. Yeah.
Oh.
But anyway. All right, buddy. I look forward to being there together at this final show. I look forward to doing another one.
Or is it a final though?
Maybe it's the final throw-in. The final throw-in.
Well, at least for Kiss.
The final Kiss though. It's funny because I've actually bought concert tickets now to like 3 or 4 different concerts next summer. And at one point my wife was like, are you really that interested in that show? I was like, I got to fill the void. There's no more Kiss shows to go to. So, maybe that's the good thing now. I'll spend my concert money on other artists that I haven't seen. So,
yeah.
I even bought tickets yesterday to see Alanis Morissette. That was the one Joe was like, you really want to see Alanis Morissette? I'm like, well, Joan Jett's opening. It'll be a fun night. So, we'll see. But everybody who's watching, listening, let us know what you think. Let us know what you believe is going to be the final show, what it's going to be like. Are you ready? Are you satisfied that December 2nd, the instruments go down? There's no more shows after that. Are you satisfied and feel comfortable and happy? Do you think there'll be more? What's your toe level like for this final show? How many toes? Are you at 10 toes, 7 toes? That's an important question we want to know the answer to. And buddy, as always, I appreciate the time for and
no problem.
We'll leave everybody with double Ringo. Or should we leave them with the the Gene? We'll leave it with the Gene for this one.
The controversial Gene.
But the Gene is with the thumbs out.
That's right. I don't know if I could do that.
I have the thumbs in. I have to make sure I do the thumbs out.
Like this, I got a pinky that won't go up.
Oh God, yeah. You're all over the place. I don't know what you're doing. You're a mess. Anyway, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the other side of the show. Later, everybody.
All right, later.
Alrighty, there you have it. We'd like to hear your thoughts and your comments about the upcoming final Kiss shows at Madison Square Garden. Do you plan to attend? What do you think is in store for the fans? And any other thoughts that you may have. We'd love to hear it. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.